What would the secure way to remote to your home server look like? That's what keyboard asks. How do I securely remote into my... So how do I securely remote into my secure server? Or to my home server? I'm a big fan of VPN. So what you could do is get some kind of mini PC like a Raspberry Pi or a VM on your desktop or an older Mac Mini. That's what I'm doing. And set up something like Tailscale VPN. Run a subnet router on that. Set that up. And then on whatever system you want to be able to remote in from, like your laptop or something, download Tailscale, connect it to the Tailscale control plane. I'm saying Tailscale because Tailscale is really cool, and I'm a fan of Tailscale. But you could also do this with like an OpenVPN server. There's just configuration differences. Tailscale is going to be much easier to set up because you basically you authenticate using the same account on your subnet router on your Mac Mini, or your mini PC. You make sure it's plugged into your network or your router at home. Your router might have a VPN service built into it too. Check that. And the generic answer is VPN, but I'm giving you some more specifics. You could use, here, I'll show Tailscale because it's just what I'm recommending. Tailscale or OpenVPN, and I'll go through a whole talk right now. So Tailscale is cool. It's like the ultimate VPN in the cloud. It's like a newer way to do VPN. And if you want to learn software-defined networking, set up Tailscale because it's the prime example of SDN in my experience. So what I've got going on at my house right now is I've got a Mac Mini with Ubuntu installed on it. And it's like an Intel Mac Mini, really old. I got it. Somebody actually gave me a few of them. And shout out to RWX Rob, actually, for giving me a lot of technology that I still use to help people today. And then I've even extended and given people some of that tech, too, for them to use in their labs. But he's spreading the love, the home lab love. But you could get any kind of mini PC to do this. Install Ubuntu on that thing. Get familiar with some Linux if you've never done it. And then set up Tailscale. Install Tailscale. The commands are all there on the website. You can do this for free. And you're going to, basically what Tailscale is going to have you do is set up an account with Tailscale. You're going to authenticate your Ubuntu system. You're going to make it a subnet router. That way it does exactly what it sounds like. It routes your subnet onto the tailnet, which is Tailscale's like back-end network infrastructure and control plane. And you're going to advertise the route to Tailscale. That stuff's all written down in Tailscale's documentation. That might be a good video to do too, is how do you set that up? And once it's doing that, your device that you've set up as a Tailscale subnet router is actually like a router. Like, think about it like that. It's like a virtual network on top of your current network that you have. Like VMware calls this an overlay network. And then install the Tailscale client on your laptop or whatever computer that you're wanting to use to actually remotely connect into your network where your home lab server is, because that was the original question. And then you use your account. You'll use the account. And then you should, based on that same account, be able to turn on Tailscale and select that subnet router as an exit node. Or really just turn on the VPN, and that's part of that subnet router is part of your tailnet network. Now your traffic on your local machine will be, as long as the VPN's on, the Tailscale is on, it will route through Tailscale into your network. So like your IP or websites that you host on that home server should be reachable securely. So like, cause like some people might have told you just do port forwarding on your router, cause that's another option. You can go on your router and you can port forward, which is basically like, let's say I used port 8000 on my public IP on my home router. And I say, I want that to be remote desktop. I want that to point to the remote desktop service, which is 3389 on my home lab server, or 22 for SSH, or whatever you're doing, 80 for the web server got going or something. The problem with that is now if you're port forwarding, your machine, your network's now a CTF for hackers. Like they're going to be trying to scan. They could scan and find your public IP and find services. They could even use a Shodan, which is a website that's literally always searching for public facing services, and you can use it as a search engine. It's called Shodan.io. Check it out. And they'll find it. So that's not secure. To me, port forwarding on a public IP is not secure. You don't have to port forward with Tailscale. You'll see why if you look at NAT traversal and how NAT traversal works with Tailscale. It's kind of dope. But anyways, you don't have to port forward on your router. You connect to Tailscale. Tailscale filters, it basically allows you to route traffic in through to your subnet router and be on your network through the Tailscale network or the Tailnet. And then it's reachable. The other option, which Tailscale, like based on their website, they would call you like you're doing the legacy method. I still think it's reliable, and it's a proven solution to VPN, and it's often baked in already. Like it's not turned on, because here's the thing. I don't turn on VPN on my home network unless I need it. Like for example, my Ubiquiti Dream Machine Pro is a it has OpenVPN integrated. So there's an OpenVPN server already in Ubiquiti. So what you can actually do is on the Dream Machine, you can enable VPN. You can create users, or you could point to like an Active Directory server, and through Radius, you could use user authentication there and authenticate through your Dream Machine. So in other words, your firewall or your home router might already have a VPN service built into it that you just have to enable. Yes, this would like be using it would enable a service publicly on your public IP that could be scanned, but at least it's VPN and it's got a user assigned to it, and you're not just port forwarding directly through your router to some box. You're now port forwarding, or you're now having a service on your router that's handling the VPN traffic and creating the tunnel and handling all that. So you should try both. Why not try both? As a learning experience, try both OpenVPN. And you can set up an OpenVPN server if you don't already have that service built into your home router in like a VM or some dedicated hardware. And in that case, you would have to port forward on the right ports. I don't know them off the top of my head, but you can Google like what OpenVPN services, like what ports do OpenVPN need to listen on, or where would I have to port forward to get that to work? And that's a different process, but very similar. You skip a lot with Tailscale, which I think is really cool. Like with OpenVPN, you'd have to set the server up, configure it, go in, generate keys for each user. Like what Hack the Box does is you're downloading an OpenVPN key if you're going to use your own virtual machine to connect to Hack the Box's network. Because that's what Pwnbox is automating a lot of that. Like Pwnbox, you're running the system, and it's already got a script that runs that connects. It uses your VPN key to just connect into the Hack the Box network. But Pwnbox and your targets are not on the same network. The only reason that Pwnbox can reach the targets is because it has a VPN tunnel to route traffic through where it's hosted, which I'll let you find where Pwnbox is hosted. It does have a public IP that gets automatically, assigned when it starts up, that VPNs into Hack the Box's network. So they're not technically on the same network, and that's simulating real life. Because sometimes when you're doing an internal test, your VPN would be given VPN access on their network or some kind of virtual machine, and then you would provide a remote internal pen test would be done remotely, right? So sweet. Well, that's that. Hopefully I answered your question. That was I went very verbose there, but I wanted to make sure that I answered that, because that's a great question, and that's a good idea for kind of like a home lab video, is how can I set up remote secure access, secure remote access. I still recommend VPN to this day. There's a lot of different ways you could do it. You could port forward SSH and boom, you're in. But like, there's some security concerns there for me, because you have services like Shodan that just exist, that you can find any service on the web that's publicly accessible with just one quick little search. It's literally called the internet search engine. So if you look up Shodan I think it's .io, like you could literally search for let's look for SSH, and it's running a query basically in everything in the world, right? That's public facing. It just looked for, right? So this is why you don't want to port forward as your way of allowing services on your internal network to be reachable from the internet for your home lab stuff. And and if you do put it in a DMZ, old school style. So you have, look at this. I'm looking up SSH, and there's in China 21 million discoveries and results of publicly reachable IPs and systems that are reachable like via SSH, right? Port 22. Like you see, United States is second with 5 million, over 5 million, close to 6 million results. And it's looking for all these ports that are SSH uses. And it's like this automated and mass enumeration tool, Shodan. And it gives you even more access if you pay for it. So this is me just showing you, like, I'm not going to do this right now, but somebody could type in SSH and one of these IPs and try to connect. It probably would ask you for a username and password. I don't advise that, but I'm just telling you that's like what an attacker is going to be doing. And they're going to be trying to automate it. They're going to be trying to like automate the discovery of systems that are vulnerable on the web, knowing how things get set up. So that's why I wouldn't do much with port forwarding unless it's specifically a VPN you're turning on and you're going to like protect the connection to the VPN using a username and password. Otherwise, try out new like software-defined networking solutions like Tailscale. For home lab, you're going to be able to get away with doing that for free, with the caveat that you may have to pay for hardware for that. But if you have a nice beefy home server already, why not run the Tailscale subnet router inside of an Ubuntu VM? And like a VM running Ubuntu, and then set up Tailscale and practice with that.